What's going on, guys? B. Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your running back sit starts heading into week number 15. It's the playoffs, must-win territory. I'm going to be talking about the running backs today and guys that I like to be starting and sitting at the position. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first four downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we're going through your running back sit starts heading into week number 15. It's the fantasy playoffs for many of you. It's must-win territory at this point in the fantasy season. So I'm going to be talking about the running back position. I got a few guys that I love in matchups and a few guys that I don't. And I love to talk about some of the studs, my top 12 roughly. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, and then comment. If there's a running back I don't mention, because I'm not going to mention all of them, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my advice. Pick two, start one over the other, flex running back, whatever you want. Drop in the comment section, and I'll give you to my best ability, my knowledge, heading into week number 15. So let's dive right into it. I like to start at the top with my top 12-ish running backs for my ranks. First off, Jonathan Taylor facing the New England Patriots. Tough spot here, but it's Jonathan Taylor. There's no way you're sitting him. 10 straight games with a touchdown. He's been absolutely lightning, especially over the last 10 weeks of the season. So Jonathan Taylor, you're obviously starting him. Austin Ekeler, same situation. He's the RB2 on the season for a reason. Facing the Kansas City Chiefs, tough defense, but you're not sitting Austin Ekeler. The upside's too high. Joe Mixon, once again, he's at the Denver Broncos. Tough spot, but Joe Mixon's also been great. 7 straight games with a touchdown. He was on a great streak, and he's been very, very good on the season. So you're starting Joe Mixon. Leonard Fournette facing the New Orleans Saints. Once again, it's kind of a tough-ish matchup, but Leonard Fournette has been outstanding. And honestly, even receiving the ball, you worried about Gio Bernard taking a little bit away. Guess what? He's on IR now, so you have no worries at all. Leonard Fournette's your man. You got to be starting him. Najee Harris facing the Tennessee Titans. You've seen his upside. You saw it last week. The guy can receive the ball in the backfield, and he runs between the tackles pretty well, I would say, but they just haven't utilized running him. They haven't got the run game going, but it worked out last week, and he's good. You're playing Najee Harris. James Conner at the Detroit Lions looks a little banged up. Missed practice today with an ankle injury. Hopefully he's ready to go because I need him, just like many of you need him, and it's a great spot here. So James Conner, if he's available and good to go, he's a smash spot, set it and forget it. Cordero Patterson, the waiver wire pickup of the year, he's at the San Francisco 49ers. He's been outstanding. There's no way to sit him. If you got him as your RB or as a wide receiver spot, whichever direction you are, you're going to be starting him. Dalvin Cook, he's at the Chicago Bears. It's Dalvin Cook. Come on, coming off game 200 yards rushing. I think the shoulder's just fine. Alvin Kamara, he's at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay typically holds Alvin Kamara in check a little bit on the ground, but he does so much in the passing game that he's just utilized so heavily. There's no way you're sitting him. Nick Chubb facing Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, smash spot here. Get out of town. Nick Chubb should easily dominate this football game, especially with Baker being out. So I like Nick Chubb. He's a top 12 option. Zeke, he's right on the outside edge of my top 12. Look, he's playing the New York Giants. Tony Pollard, he practiced, I want to say today, a little limited or something like that. Either way, if Pollard's available, I think Corey Clement still might be able to be a viable option in this backfield also, so you could see a three-headed monster. But Zeke, it's a good spot here. New York Giants, they give up the 8th most fantasy points to running backs. It's a good spot. I think Zeke can find the end zone in this one. And then my 12th is Aaron Jones, obviously, at the Baltimore Ravens. He's looking back and up to par, fully healthy. You've seen it. Didn't have to carry the load last week. Honestly, very efficient on his touches. Finished with 2 touchdowns in that game. That's the kind of production Aaron Jones can get, even on limited touches. So you're starting him as a top 12-ish option. So let's get to some running backs I love as starts this week. Guys that I think in plus matchups are really good. So first off, James Robinson facing the Houston Texans. And I know James Robinson's been a big letdown over the last couple weeks. He's been banged up a little bit dealing with a heel injury. And you've seen it. It's kind of obviously affected his production. But Urban Meyer knows at this point, hopefully, that you probably have your best player, and he should be on the field. You've seen Trevor Lawrence come out and say it too. You got to get this guy on the field and in the game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this is a great spot at Houston. 4th most fantasy points at the running back position. The 2nd most touchdowns at 15. The most rushing yards. They allow almost 130 rushing yards per game to running backs. So James Robinson here, I think, could have anywhere from 80 to 100 yards. They need to get the ground game going. Jacksonville plays better at home. That's another thing that I have written down here. They just play better at home. Robinson averaging 4.8 yards per carry on the season. Not terrible. Houston's allowed 12 different running backs with a touchdown and 5 touchdowns to running backs in their last 2 games alone. So James Robinson, just a great spot here. I think he has potential to finish inside the top 12. Must start at this point, and I get it. It's rough. The last couple weeks, he's let you down, but this week, it should be a spot. for a huge productive day for James Robinson. I'd be firing him as long as he's healthy and good to go. Myles Gaskin, my next start of the week. This is just based on the matchup. New York Jets. I mean, come on. They've given up touchdowns to everybody, especially on the ground. So there's no way you could sit Myles Gaskin now. Yes, he's dealing with COVID. Hopefully he clears the protocols, and he's ready to go if he's available. Myles Gaskin, honestly, a top 12, close to it option because he does have the receiving work in the backfield. I want to say they put all their running backs on COVID within the last week or so. Myles Gaskin was a week and a half or so maybe he's ready for this game. If he is, it's just a great spot. The Jets, like I mentioned, most fantasy points to the running back position. The most touchdowns, 19 on the ground. Second most receiving yards, the fourth most receptions to running backs. I mean, they're just bad against running backs altogether. And Myles Gaskin, like I mentioned, can receive the ball in the backfield. Gaskin, 39 carries through his first 6 weeks of the season, not very good. And that was where a lot of people ended up dropping him, a guy in my league included. But since then, the last 7 weeks, 115 carries. That's 16 carries per game he's averaged. He faced these New York Jets just a few weeks ago. 23 carries for 89 yards and 3 catches for 7 yards and a touchdown. So obviously the production is going to be there for Myles Gaskin. Hopefully he's ready to clear the protocols. I could easily see him as a top 12 to 15 running back option this week. Another guy I love, Chase Edmonds. Now he's coming off IR. Just missed the game last week. They're saying he's going to be ready to go. Coach has already come out and said it. And James Conner's dealing with a little bit of an injury. Missed practice today with an ankle. I could see him limited in this game. That means you could see Chase Edmonds a lot in this game. And the Detroit Lions, it's a good spot. Detroit, second most fantasy points to the running back position. They've allowed 8 receiving touchdowns, which is most in the league. And Chase Edmonds' upside is his receiving work. So that's a great spot here. They've allowed 22 total touchdowns, which is second most in the league. And Detroit has allowed 6 touchdowns and 3 different 100-yard rushers since week 9. That's, the last 5 weeks or so. And you're looking at Melvin Gordon, Nick Chubb, and Najee Harris as these 100-yard rushing backs. So I like the spot here for Chase Edmonds. I think he could see double-digit carries, and I think he could see, honestly, potentially 5 to 7 targets considering DeAndre Hopkins. They put him on, they're not putting him on IR, but he's technically been almost ruled out for the rest of the regular season. There's still question marks up in the air. He's looking for a second opinion because he's trying to find a way to play. But at this point, it's looking like he's going to miss the rest of the season. And the Detroit Lions, Arizona's probably double-digit point favorites. They play very good on the road. Arizona Cardinals do. So I like the spot here for Chase Edmonds. Could potentially be a top 15 back this week. Got to get him in your lineups. And then my last start of the week, it's a little bit of a flex type option, but I think he has some upside here. And it's going to be D'Ernest Johnson facing the Las Vegas Raiders. And Kareem Hunt is all but likely ruled out, doubtful in many platforms. And the coaches already came out and said he doesn't expect Kareem Hunt to play. The Las Vegas Raiders, 5th most fantasy points to running backs, the 5th most rushing touchdowns with 12, the 2nd most receiving touchdowns with 6. So it's a good spot here for D'Ernest Johnson. No Baker Mayfield. You're going to have Case Keenum under center. He's already been comfortable with D'Ernest Johnson in that same game that he rushed very effectively, over 100 yards. So I like D'Ernest Johnson's outlook here. I love Nick Chubb, but I know they don't want to run him into the ground, and they like to mix and match, and D'Ernest Johnson played very well in spots. So for me, D'Ernest Johnson is a decent flex-type option this week with upside. I mean, I know no Baker Mayfield. Is that a bad thing for the Cleveland Browns? I don't know. Case Keenum filled in quite nicely. So I love the outlook for these running backs just in the matchup. It's just really good. D'Ernest Johnson can see double-digit touches, like I mentioned, and it's just a spot here where if you're looking for that deep guy, especially when you're in a deeper league, I mean, I'm in a 12-man league with no running back, I might have to start D'Ernest Johnson. So this is a guy that I think has a little bit of upside. Yes, he does have some risk considering he may not see more than 7 to 10 touches, but I think the Cleveland Browns could beat the Las Vegas Raiders pretty handedly considering how poorly the Las Vegas Raiders have played over the last 2-3 weeks. So D'Ernest Johnson, my last start, obviously a flex type option, not necessarily a super strong RB2 play, but a good, I think, under the radar pick that no one's going to even be talking about. So now on to some sits. Running backs that I don't love in the matchups this week. So first off, Saquon Barkley facing the Dallas Cowboys. And look, I understand you got Saquon Barkley and you got to roll him out there as your RB2. I understand, but if he was your flex option and you got better ones, I would lean elsewhere. Dallas, 3rd fewest fantasy points to the running back position. The 4th fewest rushing touchdowns with 7. Just 1 receiving touchdown allowed. And we know Saquon, he hasn't been getting it done between the tackles. 16 carries, I want to say, is his season high right now. Coming off a game, which I liked him last week in his start. He had 60 yards rushing. But Dallas has allowed 1 running back to clear 65 rushing yards in their last 5 games. So I don't love the outlook here. They're already good against pass-catching running backs, and Saquon Barkley's been getting it done in the receiving game, so I understand full PPR. You probably could still fire him here, but he just hasn't been getting it done. He hasn't been efficient. It's looking like Glennon's probably going to be under center once again. The offense as a whole doesn't look pretty. The Giants are at home. I get it, but I just can't trust Saquon Barkley as a solid, locked and loaded RB2 this week. So I would potentially be looking elsewhere if I had some stronger options. Then we got the Bills running backs versus Carolina Panthers. Carolina has been good against the running backs for most of the season. They've let up in a few games, but they've still been pretty good. 9th fewest fantasy points to the running backs. The fewest receiving yards, just 1 receiving touchdown. And the Bills running backs, I get it. They might see some work here considering Josh Allen is banged up. But does that mean all 3 are going to be active? Is Zach Moss going to be active? Is Matt Breida going to see some run? I know Singletary's looked good over the last few weeks. So if you want to take a flyer with Singletary, I understand. But Carolina, just 1 running back has cleared 65 yards rushing since week 6. And we know that obviously you look at Singletary and he only had, 3-4 carries? No carries in the first half last week. 3-4 carries in the second half with gaping holes because all Tampa was trying to do was coverage and stop Josh Allen from throwing the football. So that gave the lanes to Devin Singletary. But I just don't like the outlook here considering on a weekly basis no one's going to know how the outlook of these running backs work. And I get it, Singletary's going to show flashes here or there, but I just can't trust it this week. So I'd be sitting the Bills running backs this week. Just a tough spot. I do get it. And Josh Allen, like I mentioned, being banged up with a foot injury, they might run the ball a little more than they have in the past few weeks. So, maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't trust them, especially in the playoff weeks this week. Now, Damien Harris. I got him as a sit this week, and I've been on the fence with him in certain sit spots anyway. I had him as a sit last week against the Buffalo Bills, or 2 weeks ago, and you saw how that game shaped out to be. The Patriots ran the ball 45 times. So, Damien Harris at the Indianapolis Colts. 8th fewest fantasy points, the running back position, allowing just 4.2 yards per carry to running backs. Just 7 rushing touchdowns. But those 7 rushing touchdowns, they allowed 4 rushing touchdowns to Tampa Bay in week 12. So other than that, they allowed 3 rushing touchdowns on the rest of the season. So I don't like the outlook here for Damien Harris, and he's banged up a little bit. Dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury, limited in practice, back-to-back weeks. It's not looking good for Damien Harris, albeit 7 of his last 8 games with a touchdown for Damien Harris. So I get it, it's hard to sit that, but he's erased in the receiving game. It's a tough spot, and I don't love the outlook here for Damien Harris, considering Ramondre Stevenson's going to see a decent amount of workload. Now, yes, I'm not telling you to sit Damien Harris altogether. If you got him and you got to fire him as your RB2, I understand, because he's been pretty solid on the season. I mean, I have him in spots too, so I definitely understand it. But I think it's just a risk-reward type of start here, considering it's a tough matchup and he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. He could run 2-3 times and really pull up on that hamstring. Hamstrings are very tough and sensitive, especially for running backs. Now on to my last sit of the week, and it's going to be A.J. Dillon. Now, A.J. Dillon's been a flex-type option for many of you over the last few weeks, especially with Aaron Jones banged up. He was a solid RB2 when Aaron Jones was out. But this week at the Baltimore Ravens is not a good spot. 6th fewest fantasy points to the running back position, the 6th fewest yards. They only allow 3.9 yards per carry to running backs. 0 touchdowns to a running back since their bye week. So it's been 6 weeks. 15.2 PPR points is the most in that span by a running back, and that was to Dalvin Cook. And you look at what A.J. Dillon did last week. I want to say he had 15, 16 carries for 71 yards. And Aaron Jones was very efficient with his touches, and they got up in the game and they were able to put it away through A.J. Dillon. I just don't see I just don't see A.J. Dillon being utilized in the passing game that much with Aaron Jones, a healthy Aaron Jones. We saw A.J. Dillon average about 2 receptions per game. No receptions last week, so that hurts his PPR value. And if he doesn't get a touchdown, what is he going to get you? 60, 70 empty yards at best. Like I mentioned, 0 targets for Chicago Bears. So I don't like the outlook for A.J. Dillon here. 71 yards is his most yards rushing since week 8. And I think Aaron Jones is just healthy. He's ready to go. Now, yes, they didn't have to lean on him as much last week, and I think in passing situations, it's going to be Aaron Jones when he's healthy. So I don't like the outlook for A.J. Dillon this week. I get it. I would still hold on to him. He's a decent flex option in certain spots, but this week, he's on my sit list. So that's it. That's been my running back sit starts heading in to week number 15. If you have any questions about a running back at all, one that I mentioned, one that I didn't, drop in the comment section, and I'll be glad to give you my opinion. And while you're there, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, and I'll have all your fantasy information for the rest of this season, into next season, all the off-season stuff, We're going to have lots of fun videos for the playoffs and the Super Bowl and everything like that. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.